All right, all right. Hey, hey, hey. Hey, everybody. How is everybody today? Getting ready for the eclipse, I hope, on Wednesday. Can everyone hear me and see me okay? I don't know why I have the feeling that I'm not actually streaming. Am I streaming? Can you guys hear me and see me? Can you hear the music? Are the levels okay? All right, looks like we're coming in. All right, so how's everyone feeling with the pre-eclipse energy? We've got that eclipse on Wednesday. It is a total solar eclipse. It is going to be conjunct the South Node. South Node is a time of releasing the old and outworn, the past. The Hindus believe it's our past life energy. Now, it's not only about, clearing, it's also about receiving. In fact, the South Node is more about receiving than anything, but with emphasis on the actual receiving side of things, especially for those of us in the Western world. We tend to go through life thinking that if we want something, we have to go and get it. We have to be proactive. We have to take initiative, which is, of course, all very important. But that's a more yang way of living. And so living life both in a yang way and a yin way, I think, is important. And when we're in very yin energy, like a South Node type of energy, like this eclipse on Wednesday, it really calls us to be more yin about that part of life. So Virgo is about perfection. It's about improvement. It's about getting into the details of things, and there could be some unhealthy ways of us doing this now. Usually when we have these new beginnings with the South Node, it's a time to let go of those old and outworn ways of doing it, and not to push them away either, to be more mindful of the self and more accepting of ourselves, in terms of how we are. This helps us embrace more of the whole of who we are, which has all of these qualities. And then in that way, we can shift, right? So the whole process really does start with acceptance, and that is what yin is, right? It's about being open to receiving. So what can we be open to receiving this week in regards to work, in regards to service, in regards to improvement, refinement, perfection, really embrace in our life, but at the same time, to let it pass through us, right? To be non-attached to it, and maybe let life operate more here for us. Basically, to be more effortless with these things. So maybe let me know in the chat, it's still a little early? Usually we feel it about 3 days before. It's almost there, almost a few days before. Let me know in the chat if anything's already come up for you in this context with the eclipse. Anything about improvement, perfection, work, etc. that you're clearing, maybe starting to get a new perspective with, maybe taking a more effortless approach to control, to improvement, to refinement. And going through the chat now. Allison, great for you to join us. Have Bliss, great to see you on. Miss L. Rebecca, hey from Wales. Margaret, Margaret's looking forward to working through some of the intense eclipse energies. Yeah, I think it's great to always be welcoming these times. And again, with the South Node, it's beautiful things coming in. New gifts from life, natural gifts, past life gifts. Karma doesn't always mean bad. This is things coming in that we, from our past and our roots that we deserve in many ways. So curious if there's also anything anyone's experiencing in terms of new things already coming in regards to work, service, control, perfection, etc. Rebecca, glad you're enjoying the weekly reports. Yeah, I've been getting a lot of good feedback about those reports. I do like them a lot. They're very clean, to the point. Everything's much shorter. I think it's more organized, more clear, and I think more helpful too, kind of breaking down the week like that. So for those of you who aren't subscribed to the weekly newsletter, if someone, maybe Margaret or Mind Master, if you can put the link in the chat, I would do it, but I'm sharing screen. Share the link to the insiders at masteringthezodiac.com/insiders. It's a free newsletter, and we go through all this stuff in detail. I also did a report on the mini moon. Maybe let me know what you guys think about this so-called mini moon, this asteroid. Now, officially as of today, within Earth's orbit. So it's locked into the orbit now, and will be with us for 2 months. Roughly, so 50-something days. Thank you, Margaret. So there's the link. And what the energy is about is basically what was going on in the world when we first noticed it. So a scientist discovered it, I think it was the first week of August. And so looking at the news of what was going on that first week of August, there was a lot of talk about using AI responsibly, legislation around AI. And what was the other one? The other one was, the climate and environmentalism. Hawaii was going through their wildfires that week, so there was a lot of coverage on that. And that brought up a lot of discussions around, environmentalism and, the so-called climate change and things like this. So that's likely to be the energy of what we'll be experiencing for this really, 30 years? Because the comet is going to be only with us for 2 months, but will be passing back in 2055. So what that means is those themes, when we first noticed it, those themes are likely what the comet's about. And now the comet has passed through the first time, starts the trend around cultivating these things collectively, and then this stuff coming to its full fruition and completion in 2055. And the reason I say that is because every time we've discovered this new body, new celestial body, like when we discovered Uranus, for example, there was all these revolutions going on in the world, and Uranus is about revolution. There was a lot of energy around individuality. Uranus is about individuality. And so it's just a synchronicity that when we notice a new body, whatever's going on collectively at that time tends to be what the energy of that body's about. All right, it's synchronistic for we discover it at the same time that it starts to become important in our lives and starts needing that integration. With Neptune, it was about more unity, more wholeness, more compassion for your fellow man, unity around society as well through what at the time was more of sort of nationalism. And then Pluto. So Pluto was discovered in the 60s, and there was a lot of this idea of revolutionary transformation and change in society in the 60s. And that's very much what Pluto represents as well. So this comet being discovered that first week of August really makes it about those themes that were going on that week for this whole new cycle. So anyways, this mini moon comet will be with us the next couple months, and what is starting now, themes likely around AI, used responsibly, legislation, and also this the climate and just environmentalism in general. And I've been sort of predicting that anyways because of Uranus and Taurus. We can see a lot of similar associations there. Uranus and Taurus has already been emphasizing a lot more of that, believe it or not. Will be for the next 10 years. So Aquarius sky clock. Right, so there will be a difference, of course, between the Vedic astrology or Hindu astrology and true sidereal. But of course, the house systems can be the same, so you can always use the same house systems between systems. So they're all accurate in that sense. And so if you're looking at it from the Vedic chart, you'll want to look at it from that perspective. But in true sidereal, you can check. In fact, for those of you who want to see, you can go online to the chart calculator and type in your birth details, and you can see wherever the about 10th degree of Virgo is, 15th degree, about 15th degree, 10, between 10 and 15 degrees of Virgo, that's where the eclipse is happening. So you'll be able to see exactly where it is in your chart. Hello, Scuba Kel from Raleigh. Allison Briscoe. Have bliss. So yeah, hopefully less impactful says have bliss. Sounds like she's been experiencing it quite strongly there, the eclipse energy. But again, right now is like the ending time, and we're approaching the eclipse, which is supposed to be clearing space, making space. The energies are dying down. It's a very spiritual phase of the cycle that we're in right now. So it's supposed to be very yin. Rest, space, clearing. And that creates the space, of course, for those new beginnings. Cassandra, great to see you. Mariana. A feeling of inner integration, says Mariana. Yeah, so the south node is internal, as we've said. New moons, solar eclipses are internal. Not too many of us will be able to see it visually in the world. I believe Hawaii will see it and South America will see it. But of course, that still has that impact, on all of society, on the whole collective at that time. But yeah, right now it's definitely more internalized, especially as we approach the eclipse, letting the energies die down, feeling more, receiving more. And then the seeds get planted sort of later this week, let's say, or around Wednesday and onwards. So Machine asks, Athen, how are these energies going to affect the upcoming election? Well, we can take a look at it. So with eclipses, we are always dealing with 6-month or yearly cycles, right? So let's go ahead and see where we'll be at exactly. What is it, November 8th? Can someone please let me know in the comment section? I believe the election is November 8th. Maybe it's November 10th. Actually, now I'm second guessing. If you can let me know. for now, I'll go ahead and put the 8th, since that was my intuitive guess. And we want to set this around Aries. And in fact, let's go ahead and animate this day by day here. Okay, so when is the election? November 5th. Oh, okay. Let me go ahead and edit this. All right, so the election for the U.S. Will be in the balsamic phase, the early phase of what will be the new cycle, the new next cycle, which will be right in between Virgo and Libra. So it's going to be a lunar cycle around Virgo, but by this point more onto the Libra side, which is about fairness from a collective standpoint, equality, justice, doing the right thing, morality, ethics, things of this nature. The moon will be in Sagittarius, which is about feeling quite spirited and adventurous and kind of open-minded. Okay. Now looking at some of the interpersonal planets, so Mercury will be in Scorpio. This is quite common, this time of the year for the fast movers. But Venus will be very close to the galactic center. So I don't want to get, of course, very political on here, but just looking at it as objectively as I can. The last time Venus was in this ophiuchus next to the galactic center during an election was between Trump and Hillary. Venus energy here is going through a transformation. So if we were looking at this from a purely traditional astrology perspective, Venus would be what's called diminished. Being close to the galactic center is the center of the galaxy. It's the death and rebirth point. And as a lot of you know, ophiuchus is about transformation, death and rebirth. So it's not easy for any planet to be there. So when we look at it collectively, then we can kind of say, okay, the more feminine energy, maybe the female candidate, is in kind of a diminished position having this galactic center close by. And, we could, hindsight's always 2020, and we can look back and say, okay, maybe that's why astrologically Hillary did win at the time. Okay, but I wanted to draw that parallel because that's one thing I noticed here is that Venus is actually in a very, very similar position to where she was during Trump's first election there between Hillary and now, of course, against Kamala. Now, Mars is also diminished too, though. So Mars is in Cancer. Mars was not diminished during the last time that this happened during the Hillary Trump race. So both are diminished. Predictive astrology would be much easier if one of these was in a challenging position and the other one was in a stronger position, because then we could say, okay, there's a higher probability that maybe the more masculine one in the race would have a better shot, or the feminine one in the race would have a better shot. But in this case, they're actually both diminished because Mars is not comfortable in Cancer at all. In fact, it's his debilitation. Traditional astrology is very weak here. Okay, Cancer is about protection, caring, and nurturing, and Mars isn't that kind of a planet, right? Mars wants things now, is very assertive, very direct, very proactive, and so that tends to diminish the energy. So in terms of kind of doing how does this election look? It's because of this, I really don't know. I would just be guessing at this point. Let me see if there's any other indications here standing out to me. Now, I will say that Mars is going retrograde just a couple weeks after in December. A few weeks, so about a month after, I think. And that greatly diminishes energy. So if, let's say, Trump were to get elected, there's a very strong possibility that maybe there's a kind of a recount or something like this, something where the masculine energy, in this case, is very obviously between the two. I mean, you've got literally a man and a woman. But if Trump wins being the masculine one in this race, the more masculine one, him going retrograde would mean very likely some sort of a recount or some sort of a mulligan or a redoing sort of a process of some kind. It's never happened in history, so I can't say that every time Mars has been retrograde we've had something like that, but that's definitely worth mentioning that there is that on the horizon, like before the actual inauguration, before the actual becoming of president. Mars is going to be going retrograde, which is like a redoing, a reworking, a reconsidering, a kind of an energy. So hard to say there, again, from a predictive standpoint. But just so everyone knows, there's nothing like super cataclysmic or super eventful from an astrological point of view about the election day, or really those next couple months, other than, of course, Mars retrograde and whatever we're starting to cultivate now with the eclipse. But this is just after the eclipse. It's not really, and it's the whole new lunar cycle, so it's not really part of the eclipse energy. But let me know what you guys think about some of what these placements are. Again, we're gonna have the new moon right in between Virgo, Libra, Mercury and Scorpio, Venus and Ophiuchus conjunct the galactic center, Mars in Cancer. Mars is opposite Pluto here. Venus is square Neptune. Start to factor in some of the aspects between Mars and Venus. Mars is in a grand trine between Neptune and Mercury, actually. It's part of a kite, actually, there with Pluto. So now that I've seen this, Venus square Neptune opposite Jupiter, yeah, I don't know. Which one sounds more stronger to you guys, let's say? Does the Venus in Ophiuchus squaring Neptune opposite Jupiter seem stronger than Mars in Cancer opposite Pluto in a grand trine? I mean, Mars is probably stronger here. If we're going strictly by traditional astrology, Mars is probably stronger here. So, anyways, take from that what you will. All right, going through some of the comments here. Margaret says that she's been pulling the Tower in reverse a lot in tarot lately. So I don't know too much about tarot, but I know that the Tower is transformation. That's definitely the Ophiuchus Scorpio energy. But in reverse, does that, I guess that internalizes, right? Maybe Margaret's saying that in parallel with what Mariana was saying about inner integration. Or maybe that's all synchronistic. But yeah, Tower in reverse does sound a lot like this eclipse. Good to see you as well, Julie. Thanks so much for joining. Yeah, Mercury in Scorpio. But know that, of course, that time of the year, we've usually got Venus or Mercury in that side, because they're always going to be close to the sun. And so in November, as the sun enters Libra, in true sidereal, there's like a 50-50 chance that Mercury or Venus will be in Scorpio that time of the year. But yeah, that's a good point, Julie, that the Mercury in Scorpio could make things maybe a little intense in terms of discussions and conversations and things like that going on at that time, which kind of goes without saying. Hey, Lioness of Gaia, thank you so much for joining. Thank you, V. Jackson. Great for you to join. It's my pleasure. Yep, machine, that's right. Mars is in Cancer diminished. Right, so lens, I think that's lens. Yeah, lens brings up a really good point, which is, the US is having this Pluto return. And this is, of course, the transformation to really society in Capricorn, right? So in true sidereal, it's Pluto going into Capricorn, returning for the United States. At the time of the birth of the United States, we saw all these societal changes. We went from monarchy to republics and democratic republics, mostly. So really from more control, like more power to the government to more power to the individual. We're likely to see similar transformations and changes again. But in the US, this is really the beginning. In tropical astrology, they say that the Pluto return happened a couple of years ago. But they're not factoring in precession. So when you factor in precession, which is the slow movement of the stars, which is what true sidereal is basically, it's actually happening this year and next year too. So we are just now starting the Pluto return, which does make it very interesting. So definitely the new beginning of, if you look at this election for the US, it's very different, obviously, in so many levels than past elections. And I think what we're seeing now is, we're going to look, I think from the future, we're going to look back and see how this was really the birth of something completely new, politically, structurally, economically, I think societally, not just for the US, but the world at large, being that Pluto's entering Capricorn now. But yeah, big changes, that's to say the least. Yeah, Pluto opposing Mars, yeah. So Jilly asks, will you speak to the Jupiter retrograde in Taurus opposite Venus? Right, yes, I think I did there. I think I'm just reading these a little late. But so Venus does have that benefic influence. That's why I really think it's a toss-up between the Venus and Mars there, because Jupiter is a positive force, even in an opposition like that. Very hopeful, very inspired. So it could be, obviously a lot of support from the Harris side there. But then also, of course, a lot of support from the Mars side, being in the kite and the Grand Trine. So, but collectively, in general, Venus opposite Jupiter, happens every year. At that point, at that time of the year, probably feeling a bit optimistic and buoyant about our values in general, and probably also with relationship stuff as well. All right, so we're going to go and start wrapping up here, keeping these around 30 minutes. Yeah, I agree, Machine. Yeah, so Mars is at the tip of the kite. It's quite a strong position for Mars. Thank you, Aquarius Sky Clock. I'm glad you enjoy these chats. I enjoy them too. Just a great way to stay connected. Have these discussions and share perspectives. I don't have, outside of clients, I don't really have, and of course emails, I don't really have too much of a, an exchange with those in the community. So, wow, that's a tough name to say. I think I can do it. Oh no, I can't. Tetraxi Productions. We'll cover, maybe we'll cover some of the financial stuff next time. If you can remind me there, maybe we can talk about financial stuff. I do like talking about financial astrology. Yeah, restoring a republic in America. Yeah, I mean, it's definitely going to be a rebirth of America. If you look at the Pluto returns, like when Britain had their Pluto return, yeah, again, major transformations to the bedrocks of what Britain was about. All right, you're very welcome, everyone. Thank you again. Have a great solar eclipse. We'll recap. We'll see how we've all experienced it next Sunday. But great to have you all here. Wishing you all the very best. And see you next week. Take care.